Brian Manal brought a big, it's a Hertz cardinal. I don't know if it's really Hertz. You don't know. He's a cardinal though. This is hard to believe. Ryan, you're gonna watch this bird while we're at Brodax? Well, what do you mean if you have to? Not now, but she will be. Look at him, he's going up the stairs. Uh-oh, Karen, he's going up the stairs into the house. I don't believe it. He's going to poop in the... What's he... Oh, he doesn't know about mirrors. Brian, catch him. He doesn't know about mirrors. Get him. He doesn't know about mirrors. Only on windy videos. He's biting you? Good. You deserve it. Oh, he's biting. See if his wing is hurt. See if his wing is hurt. All right,
he's flying around. He's going to get hurt flying into the mirror. He's going to break his freaking neck.
No, you got to keep him in the cage. Oh, he's a male. Definitely a male.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw him as a man, he was beautiful.
Oh, he is.
And Cardinal, does Cardinal not fit this house?
What?
You know?
Is it cute? Where's Chickadoo doing all that? Chicky doesn't go for this bird. Where's Chick? Oh man, Chicky. Where the heck is Chicky?
Moving, he just clamps down. He was. He bites you while you're fat.
I thought to him and he bites you. Hey, hey. Oh, we have a cardinal sound thing here. Play the cardinal sound. We have cardinals here. There's cardinals all over this house. Hello. Hello, cardinals. Yeah, I'm a real cardinal. Where's Chicky? Chicky totally disappeared. Where did Chicky go? Karen, where did Chicky go? I hear him. Where is he? Oh, he's under by the mailing boxes here. Chicky, come out and play. Come on, Chick. Oh man, windy video. Yeah, I think he's better off. Let's put him in the cage for now. Quiet! Hey! He bites.
They don't bite that bad though. I'm telling you, that little one the other day bites harder than this.
I'll see you down the field next week with no fingers.
Cardinal's punishment. He has to sit and watch B-25 flights all day long. Alright, just let him acclimate. He's eating already. But when I go to Brodax, here's the deal. I'll watch him until we go to Brodax, and then he's back to being a Strega bird. Lori, you're my witness in case he...
Lori. Look where he is.
Wendy, go make your silly videos. I'm sick of these birds.
They're very dirty.
I live in a house with birds. The birds are everywhere. Everywhere I look, there's birds. He really is a pretty bird, there's no doubt about it. Cardinal kits, just what I need. I'll take a cardinal kit if you don't mind. And turn that silly video off. I'm sick of watching that B-25 fly.
We'll wind up with enough wings for 4 airplanes, yeah.
Okay, at the end of one of the other tapes, we showed the permagrid thing. Shown how it makes that 90-degree edge, just in case somebody missed the last tape.
The nice part about it is it's a 90-degree bar. You've got some fine grit on this side and some coarse stuff on this side.
And it's carbide, it's not...
it's tungsten carbide.
Tungsten
and
carbide.
And it won't wear out no matter what you sand with it. But the nice part about it is you true up the wing core in the cradle and then just set this flat on the table, you're going to get a
The table maintains the 90.
Right. And just gently move it back and forth against the leading edge, and you're going to get a perfectly straight, perfectly true surface on which to glue the leading edge stock.
Now, one of the things we were trying to do in the past year or so is make foam wings more, first off, lighter and better in every way they can be better. And having the sheeting that Les can, actually Les gets the credit for everything here.
No,
I hate to
really.
say it. He got the sheeting already joined, and it's 50 thousandths. He put the trailing edge on before the top sheeting, so there's no joint at the back. He's got these permagrit tools that work, they're just out of control good. And by the way, they're usable for a million other things. But
Oh, yeah.
all of this stuff constitutes one upgrade after another. Look at the pins he's got. And he's just rubbing it in my nose, because I have a drawer with pins. John Pothier gave me some pins for Christmas about 10 years ago.
Okay, well, what I've done is I've accumulated a bunch of different pins, for modeling. I've got
Okay.
needle pins, I think they're from Tom Morris. Then I have
Those are the ones I had from John J.P.
Right.
Okay.
Then I have, regular push pins with aluminum heads, and I got some with plastic heads. And then I have two different size T-pins. Well,
Okay,
if you
cool.
go over to our friend the Container Store, they got some neat stuff.
Get that catalog next time you're over there.
You buy them. Well, here's the part number for this one.
What's the part number?
The Container Store, and it's a 213591 TJ73 clear.
This is something for Stunt News we could use too.
Yeah, but at any rate, here's how it comes.
Yeah, okay.
All right, you have 3 containers, and the lid twists off with just like an eighth of a turn. But look at this.
Yep.
Anywhere you want
Yeah,
to be
exactly.
in your stack of, let's say I want these yellow needle pins,
Exactly.
there you go.
Exactly.
All right? And
So
if
that's
you
a good deal.
If you want the bigger T-pins, they're there. But it's for things that you use like pins. You're going to have maybe a half a dozen different varieties. Presto.
Bingo,
You could
presto.
stack these things to the moon.
Right.
So it's an interesting...
That's a good find, but in other words, as opposed to, I always have this drawer, and by the way, if you've never seen this, this is how Windy works. I notice the difference between how Les works and it wasn't a sharp pin or a pin that doesn't have a 90-degree bend in it. In fact, look at some of the junk I work with. No wonder I never can win the Concours. Look at this. Look at the junk. This chick, you put a Q-tips in there. But here's look at this junk. But here's the point. This is one way to work. This is the low-budget Windy way. And there's the less way. Now, I just think for a couple bucks, whatever those containers cost, that's a good investment. That's a good deal.
And the nice part about it is, when you're taking the pins out, you got your little needle nose pliers, whatever.
Right.
You just open the right container and drop them right in. They never get mixed. They never get...
Right. Yeah, that's a constant problem.
Because I know you work with pins, you're taking them out. Next thing you know, you're putting a good piece of surface balsa, and you got the imprint of the pin.
No, I know all about that action. Believe me, I know all about that. But that's a good tip.
The other thing we're going to do was, a friend of mine had this hunk of oak, and that's what this is. But it's been run through a saw. It's approximately 2 inches by 4 inches, and all sides are 90 degrees.
Okay.
So what we did with this is only about 2 inches wide. We can now go to the root and to the tip, once we have sandpaper on this surface, and use it the same way to give us a perfect...
And never build in an unwanted, let's say unwanted dihedral.
Right, everything's always going to be square. So that's what we're doing.
We won't need that when we do the next A26 because we've got that wing ready to join and put the dihedral join in.
Well, now what?
But on this case, you want it 90 degrees.
You take your cradle, right? You got to cut in dihedral.
Right.
So you block up one end, all right? You block
Exactly.
up the tip end,
Block it up the inch of dihedral.
like this. And guess what, folks? Back and forth,
Right, exactly.
and you got the exact dihedral you need.
Yeah, good deal.
So, but
Anyway, that's two good finds.
these things come...
Start off
in
today's work with a bang.
Two shapes. As you can see, they're both the same extrusion, but this short one is handy because what you do when you're sanding is...
You can get in a corner.
Yep, you're applying pressure
The purpose
here.
of putting that there is to make it that you can get in a corner.
Yep, and the same with the rough side, you got the exact opposite.
Right.
Really a neat idea. They're not cheap, but I think they're well worth the money.
I'll bet you any money you leave the lid off of this pin thing, and he'll be there in a minute. Chicky loves pin. Look at this. I have the pin in my hand. Get. He'll help you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's use your pins from now.
Chicky,
Give him a pin.
come on, here,
Have a pin.
have an iron supplement to your diet.
He needs an iron pill, this bird. All right, but that's some upgrades. That's definitely some.
And all it does is it makes the task a little easier, and you don't have to fret about,
Yeah, of course.
making a slip with the X-Acto knife or whatever.
That's two useful, I think, really useful tips. Now, just keep in mind, we have counting the two A26s, we have 7 sets of wings we've been working on. The ultimate goal here is going to be to have the wings with the thin sheeting that are already glassed before they get cored out. And we're at various stages on various wings here. But the sum total is when we're all done with this, I'm encouraging Les to write a nice article for Stunt News that has all the little do's and don'ts and things we learned along the way. And now, with the B25 finished, it'd be nice if we could go back and use some of this technology, maybe get an ounce or so out of the ring, but that's life, and we just may have to incorporate all that into the A26. And when we finally finish that plane, let's hope that one of the achievements we're going to have is that there'll be some technological differences, and that it'll also be a lot lighter.
Carve down the leading edge.
Now let's use this block with the sticky back sandpaper and just get a look at how nice that edge came out.
And that's not even done yet, really. That needs another little dressing, but it's good and clean.
Okay, now you did most of it with the plane. You got the rough shape here on the leading edge.
Right, just on the top section. All I'm doing is trying to take it down close to the tape with the plane, then we'll start with sanding block.
And the tape just acts as your guide when you see you getting close to the tape.
Yeah, the tape will let you know. See, here it just picked up a little bit, and it's not that you're that close, but it's letting you know that you should be careful. Actually, the blade's set a little too deep. If I back it off a little bit, I'd be doing myself a favor.
You like this one better than the Master S screw, or same?
They're about the same. I think the thing that I might prefer about the Soul Engine is that you can put a fresh blade in there without going broke.
Yeah, I like being able to use razor blades right out of the shelf, those Gillette. Then when you're done planing wood, you can put them back in the razor and shave a few times, which, well, what am I telling you about shaving for?
Well,
If you want to be clean cut like me, the all-American boy.
I shave every day, above the beard and the neck. There we go.
All right.
That's a good depth for me.
And obviously you just reverse that for the other side.
Really is.
I'll tell you, it even looks from while you're shooting it that you have good control. Now, the reason that the one block has an angle is so you can get in corners and edges and around things. And
Well, not only that, it allows you to put pressure here and not so you're going to dig
right,
with
you
the
don't
end.
dig a hole with the end of it.
And you can really see what you're doing, too.
Yeah. So that really looks like an excellent investment. And you got that from Bob Violet?
Go on his website,
Bob Violet
Models, go to Permagrit Tools, and he's got, I got to show you something else. Hold on, don't turn the camera off. Happen to bring this.
He's got more things. He's a never-ending supply of toys.
Polish suitcase. Here it is.
They lighten up on the Polish jokes here. Okay, what else is in the toy bag
Now
today?
he sells these as a set. It's all the same stuff.
Oh, wow.
And usable, here you got concave, there you got convex, a flat strip.
And it's all on handles, or these you obviously don't need a handle?
These are on handles. The others you don't need a handle.
So that could make a nice leading edge. Keep in mind that carbide really does never. Now I've got, just to show you how long carbide lasts, I'll bet I have this on video 10 years ago and I've never replaced it. This one here. This thing is so worn.
Right. It's worn, but it still does the
But
job.
it's still, yeah, you could still sand. In fact, I use this on the train layout to do a lot of grinding and sanding.
As a matter of fact, they tell you how you can clean it.
You never have to clean. I never cleaned it yet.
But there's a handy little,
But that grit, that carbide never wears out. That's
and it
unbelievable.
flexes just a little bit.
Yeah,
you know?
just enough. This is a nice set. What does this set cost?
This
This big
whole set,
bucks
I
or?
think, is about, not that expensive. I was surprised. The long pieces are more expensive. This whole set was, I don't know, maybe $20, $25.
Oh, not an issue at all.
Yeah.
That is nice. But we need to get the top quality tools if we're going to do this foam wing thing, and have the world's best foam wing here at the end of this project.
Not really, but the point is, all of this stuff,
It just makes it easier.
all of the jobs that we do in building models easier.
It takes the same amount of time to make a crappy, twisted, heavy wing as it does to make a light, straight, less Emmett one, assuming you have the tooling. And assuming you really want to spend the time to make excellent things, not just run off production line things. These are really excellent. I mean, this takes a little extra effort, but there's no doubt about it. When it's done, it's worth it.
Listen, the jig that I made for the, to do the motor mounts on the
Right,
motor.
right.
I mean, that took some time.
Yeah, but when you're done, you got something.
Not only that,
You know, another thing too, a lot of people have,
you can turn out motor mounts by the gazillion.
one of the things a lot of modelers that let's say they're dentists or doctors or something, they don't know about making tooling and about making these kind of jigs and fixtures, and that's one of the things we're trying to put on the video, is how to make a sanding block that's straight, how to get the right tools, how to make it that the deck is stacked in your favor when you go to build a plane. And you go to the field and somebody's got one that has no trim tabs and it flies perfectly and it's the right weight. It's usually because they paid the price up front to get some of these things right. Anyway, that looks like it's going to work out great. One more little thing in our foam wing project we're going to ultimately have 6 or 7 wings done, but I'm really looking forward to having that first, the one that has the glass skin, and well, I'm sure Les is too.
Well, the interesting thing is we'll be able to see if the weight-saving techniques, one, are worth it, and I'm sure they will be, but two, we'll see what the strength is.
Yeah.
Based on the way I see that, your carbon fiber wing fly, this should work out well.
Well, I know that so far, this is a doable thing. There's no giant amount of tooling involved. The little extra postage is inconsequential. And I think anybody with even, that thing we always talk about, average modeling skills, can crank one of these out, assuming that they either use Johnny's templates or you make up your own variation of them, and we already have done that. So I'm hopefully in the near future we're going to be getting another trip up to Johnny's to show that high-tech stuff. But you really don't even have to know it. All you need to know is Johnny's phone number, and that's the end of that.
Yeah, John will have everything he needs to.
And we really love the fact now, there are people that it's not important they get things back right away. What I like is that you order something and you get it right away. That is so important to me. Other people can afford to wait. I like having it right away, and I know Les does too. You start a model, you want to get going, you get excited about it, and you want to just get it to the point where it's an airplane and not a block of foam or a block of wood or whatever. Well, I hope you're getting a lot of good tips off of these 4 foam wings that we're making. But it turned out that it's a very breezy day, but fog and breeze and whatever, but we wanted to get a couple flights, get out of the shop for a while. And surprisingly enough, Billy Suarez came down from Connecticut. We've been doing real good at having what I call hooky days where people just come down. And I've been working through, experimenting with the carburetors that Rich Oliver sent, the heads, trimming the heads, various things like that, but really I haven't made any big gains over what I had last year, so in the worst of all worlds, that thing I talked about, square one, we're just going to put everything back to where it was last year, and that's it. Well, we've even gotten some flights on Miss Ashley. Rich is here with the Stuka. And even though it's turned out to be a really breezy day, we're still just taking advantage of what otherwise would be a day to mow the grass or plant flowers. In fact, when we leave here today, we're going to be planting flowers for sure. Today is our first of our 2 planting days.
But on Saturday, I was there yesterday, so we flew. That's a nice day. You guys didn't know you still have
They have schedules, but then he might come to practice. But they got the other guy. That's my hope. That backfield, the man and the other one takes too much water. So now it's got,
Now we're back to Ryan Manow shows up with. This is one of John Gajewski's old planes, and of course, unfortunately, John is now blind and donated all his equipment, and we've given it to various people in the club. This one wound up being one of Brian's test planes. Here he's got an LA-46, I believe, on there, and he's been flying that, and it sounds like it's running pretty well. Now, is Billy one of the forces behind that field, that new field that they have? In Connecticut, I guess he is. I gotta ask Rich.
Oh, that's the one they commemorated?
Yeah, they just had a little contest up there. Rich went, but I had the wedding that day. I couldn't go.
Gotta do something with that gear. It crabs and cramps up right there.
I called him. I left a message on his voicemail.
Wendy, I hope you're having a good time.
Yeah, I heard it.
You miss someday.
I think I'm going to shoot you. That's the whole deal. That was Thursday. Just going to put you out of your misery.
I said, Wendy, you miss someday. Let me tell you. Best day in years.
You know, the minute you go away on vacation, the air back home is perfect. The minute you come home, it rains or it's windy. Well, you just can't win. There's no winning in this game.
Well, you learn to fly in all of them.
You bet. You learn to take the good with the bad. Why, what day did you have that was here? Thursday. Yeah. Thursday morning. Oh, Rich leaves a message on my machine. Oh, you're missing a great day. Oh, a phony. What a phony.
I said, I got it. Even if it's a super cold one.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
I didn't care.
He doesn't care. And he's going to give Wendy a hard time.
You know, you listen to his half-hour messages, before you can get onto the beat. And then he's got another 20 calls in front of you. You know, you just sit there, then boom, okay. You know what? When you really need to talk to it, right? And you can say, it rings 4 times and you get, hi! Hi, yourself on the phone. I answer that.
You know, when I call Jacobone one day, his wife answers the phone because, of course, she's the only one that's ever working. So I said to Susan, this is Billy Mitchell. I want to talk to Rich Jacobone. She goes and gets Rich, Billy Mitchell's on the phone. Oh, man. You know Billy Mitchell?
I know who he is.
Is he one of our corporate accounts? No, not really. In fact, we don't know who he is at all.
I worked with a guy when I was selling financial credit, right? And he had a close friend who was on with another company. So when they called him, they couldn't tell the operator who was real, right? Because you don't want to be. So our company wouldn't want to talk to a competitor.
Anyway, it's good to to see Billy back at the field, boy. One of my favorite people. We go back to where a story that we've told a million times. We were both 16 or so, 17, because we both had cars, and we decided we're going to take a ride on a beach in Brooklyn, an illegal drag race. And then Bob Barron shows up. He had just gotten his license, and the three of us are drag racing or whatever we were doing. Something that at the time was marginally illegal. Good to see Billy at our field, and the sad thing is we have 7 more days here, and that's it. So we're trying to push in a lot of action, a lot of carb testing, a lot of motor testing, and all of the things that this field is really good for. And even though today is really windy, we're not going to get a lot of quality flying, but it's still good being at the field, boy. The whole house is full of Rich Oliver tune pipes. The oven's full of them. The bench is full of them. Actually, I should have brought the bird to the field, but I give him a little outdoor time.
I know I'm going to be flying off the stoop, but I don't care. I'm always this morning.
You better get it done before Brodak. I don't want you bringing the job to the flying field. Leave the job at home. Yeah. I'll give you a map. I got a map.
Oh, beautiful. Because I told Amy to get onto the computer.
Why don't you just call Brodak? They send you a whole. You got to pre-enter, you know. Yeah, well, they should send you a thing with a map. If not, I'll give you a Xerox copy of mine. There's a shortcut that saves about half an hour off the trip.
Where's the shortcut?
I got to look on the map. I took it last year, and it cut the time down by about a half an hour.
Yeah, you got to tell me how to get out there.
You go through Unionville, and you come up the back way. There's no dog legging. Through a bunch of little towns.
I'll tell you, he's got a good one.
Billy Suarez. She's going to show what's happened, and it's to one of his handles. And this is why you want to monitor it closely. Let me get this on the Now, there's a couple of things you can do to make this happen less is use coated cable, of course. Take this inside the radius and polish it with a toothpick and some gorums or something. Because the reason this happens, the reason any cable breaks is because you have it. Now, Rich does it, he doesn't move it for a whole season. So that one thing is now a stress riser. So here's a tip. If you're too cheap to buy a new cable, loosen the bolt, move it out an inch, and put a new end on one side. So you're not wearing that one point out. And boy, if that saves one plane, just one plane, if that saves, it's worth it. And imagine having that happen on your good #1 ship or a Stuka or something. But it's that radius there. You got to keep that radius. If I take that cable out, I'll put a coated cable on there for you. This is the coated cable that I'm giving Rich for this. I would still take this hole first and smooth that out. There's probably a razor edge in there. You look at this side. Let me see this side. Sure, that's as sharp as a razor in there. It's going to be you want to have a smooth like a flute there. You don't want any sharp edge, especially where the cable comes out. Hey man, coated cable, you wear the coating. As soon as you see the coating's worn out, replace the cable. Unless you're Richard, of course, and he'll save another $1 somehow. After a day of testing carbs and cleaning things, I took the whole nose of this apart, noses. Cleaned the filters, did all a little mandatory maintenance. But it looks like we're ready to go into the, hopefully, the second part of the test. Now, we certainly had no problem right now with getting the motors to run the way we wanted them to, but getting the idle part of it, that's always the difficult part. And we're going to work on that in the next session. You probably know, if you've been following along with these videos, we have a house finch making a nest in our bird feeder. And of course, Chicky doesn't approve of that at all.
He's not putting a feeder.
She's sitting on her eggs. We've been watching her attentively right out our kitchen window. And now we found out a couple things from the bird. We were at our vacation in Cape May. We were at the bird sanctuary. And the guy said they sit on the eggs for 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, the young ones fledge. So we're going to be having about a 2-week period of assuming some of these eggs hatch. Uh-oh. Karen must have knocked something over here. You can see what we're doing. We're watching TV here. We're watching the net game, eating sloppy joes, and watching our baby bird. This has really been a lot of fun. Except this is a bird feeder, not a net. Up until, 2 weeks ago, it was a feeder, and now it's a nest. That's unbelievable. Chicky, pretty soon you're going to have babies. Chicky likes sitting up there looking at the baby birds. All right, back to work. We have the people from Frames here. Professional photographer and Roger Carb. And they've got thousands of dollars worth of equipment here. But hopefully we're going to see this in classic toy trains in the future.
We can probably shoot maybe at that angle.
If you can imagine all this equipment, but watch how they do this. They set the scene, and under here they have a computer.
That's good.
And they can preview the picture on the computer.
Okay, you know what we need to do?
Karen's going to be blown away when she sees this.
Yeah, because once you do it, you can't come back and...
Yeah, exactly. It's like some video. We got the whole room lit up with duct tape and things. So when you see this picture in the magazine, don't think it just happened automatically. You guys really worked for this. They worked for that. It was on. We were going to do a Playboy photo shoot or Wendy's train layout.
Oh, shit. Oh, you moved your plane.
You gotta cut that bad over. This is a picture of we really had a great photo session. I could not believe how much work it is to take pictures, close-up pictures. The two gentlemen were here, 6.5 hours for the pictures that'll be in the magazine. Anyway, the next step on this is I have those carburetors and heads that Richard Oliver made. We're going to do a little more testing on those in the few days that are left down at the field with who knows what results. These are all just experiments. And one of the things I thought I would do, because we're going to lose the field soon, and in the summer, when we have to fly, if we have to fly, we're not going to be able to taxi it on grass and things like that. So maybe as the final test, I'm going to put Venturis in the motors and just get on with, have the weight saving anyway. It's a couple ounces too. And if we're going to fly over grass, just run it like a normal stunt ship. Now, in the past couple days, I've shot from a tripod a lot of footage that I'm going back to. I'm listening, doing lap times, looking at some of the experiments we did. And it's time to put, I started out this morning, I took the carburetors off. I've had Richard's carburetors on, I've had my carburetors on, and I have one other set to experiment with. But what's going to happen is no more flying time at the field. And I'm going to run these basically in the summer while assuming we're going to get some flying over grass. With the Venturis, it gives me a weight saving of almost 2 ounces. In fact, a little more than 2 ounces. And then I'll get to see how it would be if we were 2 ounces lighter, of course, and we've done that with the OS Maxes. But the interesting thing here is we've never run these engines. These engines have never had Venturis in them in the B25. So this will just add to our little database, and if we get a couple days out at the flying field this week, great. And if we don't, we're going to pack it in, and we'll just have to get through the summer with what we already have. But there's never an end to this, and this is one of the reasons I enjoy this kind of a project. There's never an end to developing parts that are a little bit lighter, a little bit better, a little bit more powerful. Richard Oliver and Dubjet have made things that we've already tested a couple times, different heads, different shims, different carburetors. And we're eventually going to hit on exactly what we want to have as the final package. But there's a lot of development. I suspect there's a year or two of development still before we find what I would feel would be the ultimate setup. Now, once we have the ultimate setup, what's going to happen when we make our 826? Well, boy, isn't that going to be nice that we can just bolt in the motors, the tanks, and everything exactly the same as this plane. We'll really be we'll be 2 years ahead in the development of these parts. Yep, I got you working. Les is dressing off the final sanding with 600 sandpaper. Getting ready to glass these up today. We look like we're going to have a couple of rainy days in a row here. Just go right. You see the motion that he's using, and it's 600 wet or dry on a block. That makes for a really nice finish. The idea before you glass is to get as much of the sanding done before you glass it as possible. And with all these very accurate sanding blocks he has, this is just going to be, I think it's going to be really excellent. And what we're striving for is to get something that's really, really accurate. Not pretend accurate, but really accurate. And 600 paper, perfect for doing this kind of sheet. I can't believe what good sheeting is. That sheeting, what's that guy's name, Eric?
Eric at National Balsa.
At National Balsa, what beautiful sheeting.
Mass.
Beautiful. Well, we have 4 of these under construction right now, and we've just been hitting the high points every day on the work. But today, because it's raining, it's a good day to do the glassing. Get this out of the way.
Like satin.
All right, then when you're done with that, the next step is going to be, once you get the whole thing done, vacuum it, and we'll put all new newspaper out so there's no chance we're going to get any dust in this. Getting rid of the dust is a major, major thing when you're going to do a big fiberglass job. A lot of people, the thing that they leave out, the thing they don't do well, is the vacuuming. Even if you're doping a ring, you don't want to have all that dust on there. But once that dust is gone, now you can flip it and do the other side. Just flip that over and flip side Charlie. Vacuum the cradles, the edges, the table, get everything. Les has the glass cloth already cut to size. You want to have everything cut to size if possible. Now you want to put a piece of newspaper in there.
In where?
In between.
Oh, really?
Okay? Well, not right now. We want to get the table. But before you do it, so that whatever drips over doesn't wind up in the core.
Gotcha.
Because you're going to have some, or wax paper. I don't know, we go get some wax paper or whatever.
It needed to bring a roll. That's good.
Okay, just to get the dusting. Is one of the things that makes doing this kind of stuff more difficult than it has to be is when you wind up with dust in the fiberglass. For the time that you're fiberglassing, you're using a resin, any little dust or anything gets in there. And get it all as clean as could be, because boy, this is going to be for Les's personal plane, so his personal honey pie. If this was my wing, you wouldn't dust anything. Just leave it there, no problem. All right.
By the time we're done with this, everybody in the hobby is going to call it the 100-year airplane.
Fresh paper that hasn't been dusted upon. And you could just put one piece of newspaper right up, between the core and where it's sitting for now.
Yep.
And then you can drape the glass cloth right on top.
On this bottom one, you want to tape it down? Or no?
Yeah, you can tape it down if you want. Just make it comfortable for you. That's fine as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I don't
you know what I mean?
Every person has something different. I like to have a clean work area when I'm doing this. Any little schmutz that winds up in there is just a pain.
Well, if there's,
That's what I would suggest, or if we had wax paper. I don't like tinfoil. Wax paper would be okay, though. Or newspaper.
we're gonna do the next,
Just one layer is enough. As soon as you get that glassing, you can take it out of there then. You just use that to hold it in place. I'll get Chicky to hold it down there for you.
You love that.
And that's just helping you for anything that kind of drips over the edge.
we're set.
Okay?
Yep.
Mix resin. This job we're going to use 105 resin, 206 hardener.
One pump each?
Two pumps each.
Okay.
This is going into early warning system here. Hang on. Okay, just get it all on, then worry about it. You're trying to make it too neat too early. Let it just, you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Just, and if you ever start this, you start as a sun. Start in the middle and work your way to the edges. The quicker you can go, the better it is. West resin, we're using the quick hardener, but it's not quick in terms of 5 minutes. It's really not fast hardener, I just want to see them work fast.
Come here, okay. Let me glass your lens for you.
Oh man, no, I think that's gonna. You know what I found, Les? Just get it on. You don't try to make it pretty or cute. When you try to make it, Elliot found that out the hard way too. He's trying to make every square inch wrinkle free. Just get it on, and you trowel it, it'll come right out instantly. So that's the tip of the day.
You know, actually, dabbing it
Yep,
is faster than using brush strokes.
sure. It doesn't matter because you're going to squooze it all off. You know, it's going to trowel all off when you're done. And each time,
We want
so you're going to get almost all of it back off.
Yep.
Two of the tricks that are worth doing is to hold it on about a 45-degree or more angle and not to drag and pull the cloth. A lot of light strokes, I think, would be a whole lot easier than just digging into it. See, let me show the cup of how much we got off of it. You got almost all of it off. Okay, yeah.
a lot.
Okay, so you just keep working it now from one side to the other, troweling it off. Rubber gloves are a good idea. Now, once we get this, he's going to wrap this around a trailing edge. We're not worried about that now. We'd like to get this whole surface nice and smooth. Then we're just going to hit it with a little bit of heat. Now, what I did, I had the air conditioner grinding away because I wanted cool in the shop while we're doing this. As soon as we have the cloth and resin in the place that we wanted and it's sitting there, we can shut the air conditioner off. It'll cure even quicker. But it's better to work in cool conditions. If you were to do this out in the blazing sun, this stuff would go in 15 minutes. But we'd like to have at least an hour work time here for each panel.
Yeah, but we're not into this more than like 10
no.
minutes.
No. You got plenty. Like I said, just keep doing it. The way you're doing is fine. You got a nice technique. There's not a single wrinkle in there. And if you see a brush hair, what I do, I clean the brush in denatured alcohol, but basically because we're running out of brushes. Usually I don't even bother doing that. I just throw the brushes away. Now, you know, in it, if you took all the resin off, it wouldn't be any good, and if you left it all on, it wouldn't be any good. So you want to find that middle road where there's just a light coating of it on, and that you have no wrinkles. Just a little. Now we have everything where we want it. Just a little bit of heat. Now you can get even more off.
It's coming off.
Just, you don't want to cook it. You know, we don't want to cook it, but you can see even how much more is coming off just by using the heat. Anytime you glass something, once the glass is in place, just a little heat. You don't need a lot. That is really going to be nice. Now the main thing is I wanted you to get real comfortable doing it. You can see that in the beginning you were kind of awkward at doing it, but in 15 minutes you have your own technique and it's done. Now when this is dry, you'll be able to cut through the newspaper and e-glass in one shot. You know what I mean? Yep. It'll be so nice and easy.
Look at how much came off.
Well, that's the whole deal.
I would say that 60% of the epoxy
Easily.
that we missed is back in his pipe.
Well, that's, yeah, just a couple thoughts. One of the things here, you want to pull a trailing edge down, and just let it glue to the newspaper, because the newspaper will help you get a cleaner cut. Okay, you got it. And then run that hairdryer down the trailing edge. And you can, until this starts to gel up, you can just keep moving it around. You can see there's a wet spot right here just to show you. You can just keep troweling it, and you're getting two things. It's pushing down at the same time.
It's hard to get good help these days, but I managed to get Les Demmett talked into building them, making a bunch of line reels so we get...
I'm gonna clean your leg.
Oh! This is what, hey, his wing is coming out great though. We got the wing, we gotta make up some more of these Rich Oliver Coon pipes. This wing is gonna be great. This is really the whole secret to the whole thing now, is handle it from this angle. You can see he's got just enough of the resin on there, just enough of the e-glass. We'll wait tomorrow, trim this all off, glass the other side, and then we'll be ready. Well, we only have 3 more of these to do, but then we're going to be going up to Johnny Duncan's to do the special pouring using the special templates. This is actually the first of the wings that's going to go in Les's plane. This is it.
Every once in a while, I get to see something that I hadn't seen before. This is from our friend Ed Cotton. And it's funny, this is his business, of course. These are some of the scale models that he makes. He just sent me a little, I guess it's a page from a magazine. No, it's from his catalog, I guess. He's from Canada. These are the little models that he makes. It's pretty cool. And I guess that's one of the things I enjoy about doing what I do, and as opposed to making maximum money on Wall Street or whatever the alternative is. I get to meet an awful lot of really talented, really highly skilled people. And imagine now, I'm just thinking about my train layout, if we could talk Ed into making me some buildings. Ed, do you ever make these in O scale? Think O scale here. Anyway, from Ed Cotton from Canada. I got another picture in today's mail. I just want to read the little caption. David Chang and David many times we had gone to contest with him, and take a look at how nice and neat this, pretty nice shop, Dave. Anyway, Dave's one of the up-and-coming guys. He's in the VSC. Done an awful lot. It's a take-apart impact that weighs 60 ounces, powered by a VF40 with a poly prop plastic tank. My second impact wing is already done. Comes apart in 2 pieces. Horizontal tail will come apart also. By the way, for anybody who's not aware, David Chang is an extremely good craftsman. I guess you can see it even in his model. Nice paint job. I'm reading his letter, and he says he can't believe what a lot of work it was. Well, Dave, welcome to the world of take-apart construction. Anyway, looks like a beautiful plan. I'm sure we'll see more of this in the future. May even get to see it at Brodex. I'm not sure.
Now, my apologies for the sound on the last half hour or so of video. The sound has been less than perfect. We've needed to get Carlos to look at the camera, redo the camera for us. And hopefully we're back in business, but if we do have some sound fade here, we're going to probably be getting a new camera before we go to Brodex. We just don't want to lose any of the footage of Les. I think that's really important stuff, because we're going to ultimately be editing that down to a couple of videos that show that type of wing construction. So anyway, we're going to meet with Paul Citron. I hope he's going to we're going to try to trim out his Brodak 40 ship. There should be some interesting footage today if it's a flyable day. It's still full of ruts. This is what we're landing in. Up to the field, even though the field is really a mess. Paul Citron is here from Connecticut with his plane. And one thing he had a K&B 40 in there. He's got some flights on the plane, but I thought I'd donate the day to him the same way we donated that day to Bill Hummel and Noel. I got here a little earlier, took a couple flights with my bigger Venturi. It seems like 220 is too big and 215 is just right. But we have all three of them. We can go back and forth if we get some flying. Primary thing is we want to see what Paul's up to. He's got a Brodak 40 in here now. Hey, give me the history of the plane. We've seen this already last year, but you didn't have any flights on it.
Right.
Or no real flights.
And I've got very few to date because I had a K&B 40 on it.
Okay.
Was unable to get a decent run out of it.
The 40 wouldn't run in this plane. It's a Prowler.
Yeah.
Modified a little bit.
Yeah, it's about 3 inches longer tail moment.
Okay.
See the rudders. And so I adapted the Brodak 40, made up a custom shaft extension for it.
Okay.
It's got a super tagger needle valve in there now because I found the needle in the original one. The original needle valve just didn't seem to be very stable.
Okay.
I've gone back and forth on tanks. I had standard, Uniflow, chicken hopper, then I put a muffler tap on it. Marbling muffler pressure right now seems to be better with the chicken hopper with the muffler pressure. Played around with the props. The Bowie button seems to be the best one so far.
Okay.
But I'm still having problems with it wanting to die. I haven't tried the latest changes. I'm having problems with the dying on outsides. Whether that's solved now or not, I really don't know.
Well, when you say dying, is it going rich or going lean? What's happening?
Originally, it was going lean, and it would either quit or come close to quitting.
It would come close to quitting rich or lean. You think it's lean?
It was at about 3 o'clock roughly on the outside.
Now here's what I already know from having seen, and having my own of course, having seen maybe 15 of these motors go from the first flight to fully trimmed out like Bill Hummel's. It's about as easy to get this running. If you have trouble getting this running, you got to look somewhere other than the motor. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've never seen one that doesn't have a motor run, or that has something really quirky going on with it, but that doesn't mean you haven't invented something.
Funny thing, it was, when it runs well, it runs real well. And later on in the flight, it wants to do this dying out. So I haven't really been able to get a full pattern on the plane yet. I can't dare do anything up real high.
And it's 43 ounces?
It's about 43.
Okay, well, you know, the field this is terrible air here. The air is turbulent as could be, so take a very safe flight. Let me listen to the motor and see what I can figure out. The first thing Tom learned right away was the muffler was way too restricted.
Yeah, I got the...
That won't be enough. You know, what you wind up doing is putting a tongue muffler or no muffler until you get a tongue muffler. That is helping, but it's not really. The one Tom has a hole you could put your whole arm and wristwatch in, and that seems to be the ticket. See, again, it's a motor that's made for. It's not a pylon motor. We can choke it all down. It's made to run like a stunt run.
You know, he had 3 engines out there that were exhibiting the same problem, or seemed to be the same problem. And the only common thread he could find is we were all running Power Master 10% 22. And
it's the fuel I've used for 5 years, and
I've never had a problem with it. Now,
I mean, that's like saying the common thread is they're made out of aluminum. You don't stop using aluminum. That's not a good way to.
I'm running 7.5% that I was able to get locally, 7.5 24, since a 50-50 split right now.
Now, we always want to start off any test day, even like a Bill Hummel, Noel Drindak day, with a square one flight. Now, to me, it sounds like this is a little on the rich side, but again, not going to put all these flights on video. We're just going to try to go through and see what we can learn from. We've done enough of these now that we have some kind of a decent database. Now, one of the things Paul has here, he has some RC fuel, and he has some Power Master fuel, and we're going to try to see if the RC fuel has less oil, less nitro, more oil, more nitro. You got to keep in mind, hard to do stunt patterns today. The air is just puffing and turbulent, and the field's a mud hole, but it's a good day to do this kind of testing. And I really hope we can learn something each time we do this. We can learn from Bill Hummel's experience. We can get Paul a copy of that video. See, this is really weak on power too. Now the other thing I know right away, the lines are too long. And you know how many times I've said on video how bad it is when you start off with too long of lines, you never get the plane trim. Well, Paul's got them, and he measured eye to eye, not center to handle. So I have a feeling you're going to be clipping 3 feet off these lines before the day's over, especially in turbulent air. Now in runway air, you can get away with this. Runway air, straight air, lets you get away with problems that when you come to this field, same thing with, as I say this, I'm trying to listen to the motor at the same time, but the same thing when we were at Palisade Park, let's just use an example, the Venturi and Miss Ashley was fine. The first day we came to this field, right away I knew the Venturi was too small for these conditions. And we basically, between now and the Nats, this is the only field, between now and the end of the year, we only have this field, so there's no point setting it up for Palisade Park. I'll leave that Venturi in a box with a little note on it, and hey, lots of luck. So let's see now, when Paul comes out, he says halfway through a flight, this goes lean. We'll see what he's got going on after he lands. I don't want this to take too much time, but we still want to get the things. This sounds, number one, like the motor's running rich overall, and he's running that RC fuel, so let's see if it gets better when he runs the Power Master fuel. Paul Citron of Connecticut. Well, the first thing we want to try to cure, we want to get a little more power out of this. And even though he has the muffler drilled out, we're going to run it one flight without the muffler. Also, we've abandoned the RC fuel and put real Power Master 10% in here. We want to see if we get two things that wasn't smoking much before either. I wasn't crazy about. Anytime you don't have to wipe the plane off, Paul, that's a tip off. You're getting... Okay, now, this is probably okay if you had a 35-ounce plane. This is 43.
Yeah.
Plus, now it's probably 40. So you gain two things. You got rid of some weight, and you'll probably get more power. Let's see what it sounds like. Now the test is, the real test when you take a muffler off a plane is how much do you have to open the needle valve up. See, if nothing changes and you have to leave the needle valve there, then the muffler's okay. But if you have to open that needle valve a quarter of a turn, then you know you've got rid of one of the restrictions anyway. It is on 10% now? On Power Master, okay.
Yep.
Now we learned something already. Paul missed the needle set. It's too lean now. I don't want him to do maneuvers, but now he's got some serious power. And again, the RC fuel is fine if you fly RC. If you're flying control line, I like fuel that has a predictable amount of nitro and oil in it, and I've always used George Aldrich. His formula, the GMA, in fact we got it right here. This is from Power Master. Any of the other fuels, you're always adding oil and adding nitro and adding something that costs $30 a drop or something. It's just, I'd rather buy the fuel. Now, like I said, we had to open up the needle. We opened up the needle about 2 full turns, and guess what? It has to be opened even more. So it just shows you how much oil was missing, how much nitro out of the RC fuel. What a difference there is in Power Master. When you have to open up the needle, that's your first, or if you're hurting for power, lose the RC fuel and get real fuel. With that power setting, I mean, it was a little bit over lean. You need to back it out even more. You might even be able to use those longer lines, but what you want to have is that in level flight, it's just a little rich. You pick the nose up. It's at that power setting when the nose is up, not in level flight. So you know you got to richen it up just a little bit. I made this little chart up to show show Paul what I thought was the situation here. Now, all two-cycle motors have a power peak where they get better, flatten out and get worse. When you're in level flight here, as you pick the nose up, the motor always goes leaner. So if you're at peak power, which is where he was here, when you pick the nose up, you've got less power. We want to be right here. So when you pick the nose up, you've got maximum power. Back in level flight, it comes back to being just a little bit rich. Surprising, because when you had it all muffled up and with 7% fuel, I was afraid we weren't going to get this working the way I wanted. Now you got some power to deal with. Even if you're riching it up, you're still going to have enough power. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was a huge difference.
Oh yeah, night and day. I'm telling you, these people that sell fuel that doesn't have oil and nitro in it, it makes you crazy. You just spend all day. And see what happens without oil and nitro? The needle gets really ultra critical. One click in, when you've got nitro and oil, it levels it, smooths it out. The motors are getting cooled by the alcohol. They're really not as sensitive to the air as you think they are, but getting that critical needle set to where it's just one click in or out that makes a lot of people crazy. Now Paul has had some Aussie motors that, here's the situation, you're one click in, off to the races.
First time I flew here.
Right.
At the KMB.
Don't say K&B.
Haven't mentioned, that's the engine. One click. It had a great run. I thought we had it made. We thought it could be just a notch richer. Click, one click. That was it.
And that's one click. What you have is a one-click motor. It'll make you crazy. Sun goes behind a cloud, and now it's a half-a-click motor. Sun comes out, see, that's what makes people crazy.
It made me crazy.
Yeah, they'll tell me. I had a box full of those kind of motors. And usually they're RC motors that have high timing, a lot of compression, they make a lot of power, but they don't have a motor on. It's still a little bit too rich. Too lean, I'm saying, not too rich. A little bit too lean. So what we're going to do is each flight richen it up just a little bit here. The two lean runs, we're going to purposely make this richer than it has to be, just to see how selective this is to the needle valve setting. The part of it that I'm not familiar with is chicken hopper tanks. Now Tom is, and he'll be here tomorrow. Chicken hopper tanks, I wish you had a regular tank we could just strap on there and see if that made a difference. But it seems like part of that inconsistency, I think, is going to be traced back to that tank. But we'll see. Let's give it another flight, run it a little bit richer, and let's see what we got. Kind of sneaking up on a needle setting, but I really don't like. I'm not sure that what we're experiencing is part of the tank. I know it's not in the motor because we've had enough of them that don't do this. And the next time Paul comes down, he's going to bring some other tanks. Tom Hampshire uses chicken hopper tanks, no problem. But the shimming might be different. And he doesn't have muffler pressure on this now, so he's got the run pretty much where he's going to be happy with it. See, what's happening, the air is moving around. It's going dead rich inverted. No, I don't like that. That's almost always the tank. Now it's going back to speed. Now the way to do this, we'll see if we can get Paul to do it on the next flight, is do some just plain lazy eights and see which side is richer and leaner, or eights, the traditional AMA eight, and figure out which way the tank has to be shimmed. Because it's a chicken hopper, I'm not familiar with it, but if we had a regular, look at this, the air is really getting unflyable now, we're getting dangerous, and I know Paul doesn't want to risk his plane. But hopefully we've ironed out some of the little things that we can do, and the next time he can come down, bring a few spare tanks, some props, I think there's a good chance we'll get this working really well. But that's the other thing, when you come for a trim day, you want to come down a field and Yeah, but you gotta have all the parts with you. If they're home, it's like you don't have them. And I wish we had just a little bit better air. See, that I don't like that. I think that can be related to the tank shim or the tank. We're back from a really, I think, a productive day, a trim day with Paul Citron. The thing that was, well, Paul, again, only brought one fuel tank, and I think the next step, and we're going to try to do this real soon, next step, well, he'll do it up by his house in Connecticut and give me a little feedback. Get a standard tank on there and see if it makes any difference. I would check with Tom Hampshire, see what if he's got some tricky tank that he likes better than all the others. But, standard 4, you have, don't you? All right, now tell me about the finish. Pick that up so we can see the finish up close. The finish on this, I know you really can't see it on the video. I'm going to try to focus in on it. Is absolutely, if this plane were at the Nats, there's no way it would not be a front row plane. This is front row, even though it's a profile. Look, you can see your hand in it. Paul is the master of putting a lot of time into a profile. Not sure he's made the right decision here. Buy a big Cardinal kit. Hey, you can buy a Strager kit. They're out. I'll make you a deal. Give me this, I'll give you a Strager kit. All right, so tell me what else.
Well, this was originally a Scott Smith prowler kit.
Okay.
And I was planning to have a heavier engine in it, so I had shortened the nose by about 5/8 an inch, lengthened the tail
Okay.
about 3 inches with the twin rudders on. It's covered with carbon veil. It's all Brodak, basically following Windy's tapes.
Nothing tricky, just a lot of hard work on that finish.
Yeah, it's the thing that was the hardest, I think, was I ended up with an incorrect carbon veil, the stuff they call the hard veil.
Oh, okay. It doesn't bend around corners?
It has a lot of porosity, and I ended up having to do some filling that I didn't expect I'd have to do there.
Okay.
Unfortunately, most of the plane was what they call the soft veil that worked a little better.
And it worked without a problem. You put it down with Brodak dope?
Yep, Brodak dope.
Okay.
I used talc and Brodak clear as a filler. And
You use Knowles type of hardware here, or who's that?
that's Ultra Hobby.
Ultra Hobbies, okay.
And carbon.
Yep, the carbon rod.
Yeah, originally I had the arrow shaft type, but because I went to the lighter engine,
Right. You can lose some of the weight in the back.
And
And this size plane, this is plenty strong. This is overkill in itself.
And the engine has a custom prop extension on it.
Okay, nice.
So I could.
And it matches the Venturi. Look at this guy. You can tell he's an opera buff. Everything has to match. Well, look at my plane. Nothing matches. Yeah, that really looks nice. That is, if we ever had an award, like for the nicest profile, you'd certainly be one of my top choices. There have been a couple of nice ones at the Nats where the guys did it absolutely the same finish. You know, that they would do on a Nobler or on a big ship or whatever.
Oh, it's a way for me to learn and experiment.
I think it's gorgeous.
And all the fillets are epoxy, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, it's hard not to like epoxy, right? The other thing is, if today when we did our trim session, if we had a couple of tanks, always a good idea if you're going to do this is have all choices. Have the one you know works, an experimental one, a plastic one, and then do it right at the field. You really can't do it just talking about it. You got to go down the field and get greasy. And Paul enjoyed flying at our wonderful club field where you never can tell where the wind is blowing. But we got a lot done. This was a good first day out for this kind of thing. And we're going to be working with this plane more in the near future, and hope that all this information benefits Paul, that the next plane he builds is going to be a Strager kit. A profile Strager, knowing him. Noticed for the first time that the eyes are open. They have little eyes now. So cute. All morning for this action here. The kids are here. We're having breakfast. Look, check this out. No, don't talk. We actually eat in the dark. So she's regurgitating the food. You see it, Michelle? But can you see the beaks?
Yeah.
She's got 4 babies. You got to realize, to watch this, we have to sit in the dark and eat our breakfast here. And to anybody who doesn't like baby birds, well, tough. You lose. This is what we get to watch well, I guess we're going to see this for about 2 weeks before they fledge out of the nest.
It's already been a week.
No, they're a week old. They don't have feathers yet, though. They still have that. Oh, look at this mama bird. Oh, mama.
You are cute though.
Now this is so cute. This is the mama bird feeding the babies. And then on this side of the camera we have Karen feeding her baby Wendy. Come on, feed them. Feed them. Click the Nature Channel.
Oh, there's a robin on the roof.
Oh my God. So anyway, look, this is now these are humans eating. And as we sit here, how funny is this? Humans eating in the dark so that they can watch the bird feed.
On a Sunday morning.
Yeah, Sunday morning.
Well, and that's the way it is when you're part of Wendy's family. You lose.
Bye, Wendy.
Bye, Wendy. Say goodbye to the company.
See you later.
Bye.
Next thing I want to do, I want to get a couple of the props for the B-25 de-pitched. There's a chance Brian and I may be able to get up to the field. We don't know if it's underwater or not. But I want to get a couple of variations of props. Now, because these are the ones for the 65, and maybe I'll do a little bit. There's not enough room left on this video on the next one about the little prop technology that we've been using lately. Anyway, that's the next step. They already have the water boiling in a nuke. Get out my little gauge. In fact, because I see we're coming up on the end of this tape, I don't want to be in the middle of this when we do it. We'll put that on the next tape. But a man with a lot of props is like a bird with a lot of chicks. Boy, if you could only see these chicks. I just never get sick of looking at them in there. It's unbelievable. Anyway, we'll do this on the next tape, and we're going to go up to the field and see. We've had 6 days of rain sometime every day, and usually if that's the case, our field isn't really flyable. Now, I have to do a little commentary on this. We have been out at the field. The field is underwater, and I just leave the camera running all day, so I record virtually the whole fly-in session, and it was not a real great day. We were testing props and Venturis and stuff. There's the B-25 flying, and nothing really exciting's happening. The air is terrible. The field is soaking wet. Fish are swimming around the field. But we had a really interesting thing happen, and this is the kind of stuff you just can't make up. In the middle of the vertical 8, and I just wanted to put this 1 minute of footage on, because we have about 3 hours of this, and I'm sick of looking at it myself. Let's see, we're at the triangles now. What happens, if you look at the screen real close, you'll see a helicopter flies right over the field. Turn your sound way up. In fact, I would have turned my sound way up. Maybe I'll put this on in like first person. But you watch this flight. Now here, the wind is shifty and we're going all over the place, so it's not really a good flight or one you'd want to watch over and over, except for the fact that a helicopter flies over and blows me out of a maneuver. Now, what'll happen as a helicopter passes over the field, the turbulence is quite a ways behind it. So it's going to be the maneuver after this. Brian and I watched this for an hour the other day, and it's really funny. You can't believe it. See, I just leave the camera running for the whole flying session. Usually it'll run about an hour, and I put another battery in, another hour, and I come home. And just let it run and look at if anything exciting happens, or God forbid I get a good flight. Here it comes. Here's the helicopter. See the helicopter? Now watch. Here's the downwash. Woo! Just blows a plane right out of the sky. I'll see if I can record that in real time. That is because you'll get the sound better that way. Anyway, that's funny. You can't make that stuff up. Scary stuff.
Brian and I, we could go fishing. We found a lot of, look at it, there's a fish right over by the tree, Brian, a big one. Yeah, circle burner lake. And so you want to be a circle burner? But don't think being underwater is going to keep us from getting some flights in. You see any more? Oh yeah, there is. Yeah. Well, you can see anywhere the water's moving, there's a fish over there too. There's one right there.
They're all over.
If I had my boots.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, if I had my boots.
One up and coming out of the tree here.
Well, there's a pair. There's two, yeah. These are all brown carps. Here comes one here.
They're coming right at us.
There he is. Look, he's got stuff on his back. Now what's going to happen as this water recedes, a lot of them are going to get trapped in here.
There's one coming right at us.
The last time, when I went through, there was 100 dead fish here. They're too stupid to swim away. Look, he's out of the water there. That can't be that deep there. Well, you can't believe it, huh? How well he's adapted to, in a matter of one day, he's adapted to being in the shop. We're going to let him out of the cage pretty soon. He's ready. He's nice and calm, not banging into things anymore. He's eating, and that's the main thing. As soon as you have a bird that eats, you're home free all. Can't help love this guy. Boy, what a find he was. Now when he grows up, he's a healthy bird. We're going to release him into the wild, but we're going to keep him for about a week or two more. And when we go to Brodex, Brian's going to release him into the wild. Oh, release me into the wild. Keep me here and feed me. Oh, no. Look at these two guys. Hey! They love each other. They just don't know it yet. Life at Wendy's. It's a bird's world. Again, my apologies for just really this bad camera, and we hope we've got it squared away. Not sure we do, but I'm certainly glad it didn't happen at Brodex. Anyway, hope the sound is back to being the way it should. And we're back to doing whatever it is that we do. The birds of the world. And today, I can't believe this, another rainy day. Sitting out here watching my babies. And they are just starting to have pin feathers. Little face on this guy. Just starting to have pin feathers. Anyway, we're going down the shop for another exciting day. Watching the birds grow day by every day. It looks like they double in size. Look at that little face. The eyes are open. Hard to believe. And here's a telltale sign that all is not well in a Windy household. You get the mail for the day, and the first thing on top that you open it up is the AARP bulletin. Oh, God. Almost every day we get asked questions that I think would apply to a lot of other people in the event, a lot of other subscribers even. And today we have several questions, but the first one is a very simple solution to a problem. And I'm not sure I have the solution, but I wanted to put what I thought might be some of the solutions up on the tape. Now, our friend Kevin King in Canada has made a tsunami. And the first day he went out to the field, and he's not the only one that this happened to. What happened, he has made a built-up tail. And I just want to make an example, because this can happen can happen if you have built-up flaps, not on a wing really, because you have ways of dealing with it there, but it can be, I'm just going to make an example up, it can be a built-up flap, typically Magnum-type flaps, where they have the ribs going back and forth. This is one place it's very common you have this problem, or in a built-up tail. And what happens is, when you seal this with dope and tissue, you're making each one of the boxes a sealed little area. You're making a sealed little container. Now, this is fine, because usually we build planes in the winter, and You don't think of these things until the day you take it out in the sun. Well, what happens if you were to look at the tail from the front, and now you put it out in the sun, and this air inside expands. They're in all little sealed boxes. It starts what I call puffing. It's the reverse starving horse. Now, Kevin, the first day out, he experienced this, and we tried to come up with a solution. And even though this isn't a real solution, what I thought he could do is take a 16th wire, sharpen it on one end on a grindstone, and then probe and go in real carefully. And I thought if you hung the plane by the lead outs, you'd have a better chance that the wire wouldn't start drooping down. You need to just put a pinhole in each one of these and then allow somewhere for that air to escape. So you would only wind up with what amounts to be a pinhole on the outside of each surface. The other way that I've seen people do it, and I've done it because I've been frustrated right at the field, I took a pin and put a hole on the bottom of each one of the open bays, and then everything just shrinks right down again, of course. An old Magnum, I remember Joe Ortiz's Magnum, we wound up doing this, making 1,000 holes in the bottom of the flap. This is one of those things you don't think of in the middle of the winter until you take the plane out and it starts doing this. And to me, that really looks ugly. I don't like that at all. But the solution really is, when you build these structures, each time you make a rib, let's make a little better diagram of this. An elevator as an example. Somewhere in here, and probably in by the flap, there should be a hole, and it needs to just be a pinhole. Let's say you put the horn in here, leave so you won't see the hole. And in each one of the ribs, put at least one hole. Better even to put two in case some dope drips down in there. 2 little pinholes in each rib. Now in Kevin's case, he also has the other problem of a built-up rudder. And I thought, well, we could go down through the top with a piece of sharp wire, put a pinhole in each thing, or come in through the bottom if you were really risky. And then at the top, take one of those little light things or the top of a pin and make a little, like a navigation light. But anyway, you don't want to make sealed boxes. You want to have each one of them vent. At least this one would vent to this one, which would solve the whole problem. Same thing with a canopy. Now with a canopy, let me do this too. You have a canopy. Now usually, whether it's tinted or clear, this is a sealed area. And if you make the way we make canopies, and on all the canopy detailing videos, you make a little box, you put the seat in and a little dashboard and some other details. But in essence, this is a sealed box too, and this is what causes the canopies to fog up on a humid day. So what I suggest you do, one is you don't want to just drill a hole. You drill a hole, what happens? All the little balsa chips and shavings wind up inside the plane. I don't know how that happens. This probably has a static charge and it sucks in all the dust and dirt. And I can remember several people's planes that were absolutely flawless, except they had all this, I call it schmutz in the cockpit. Well, the way to get around that is leave a hole maybe the size of the end of a pencil and take a piece of a coffee filter so that you have filtered air and it keeps out all the dirt. And on a canopy, that'll solve one of the problems that we hear about all the time of schmutz in the canopy. Sealing the surfaces, leaving pinholes will solve one of the other little problems that everybody seems to have from time to time. And that's just one of the things that, these are like simple solutions to simple problems. I don't know if we're going to see if Kevin sends some pictures, but I hope that solves his problem.
Now I thought this was priceless. Here's the first Strega kit, the label from the box. Now check this out. I don't know if you could make this up. Look at the number of the kit. CLB57. Well, I'm 57. I don't know if that's good or not. And this handsome picture of me looking like I'd just been through drug rehab. Well, anyway. Very nice. Now that the kits are out, very pleased, and we're probably going to be building one on video over the next winter. But again, we'll find out we have so many projects going, it's just out of control here. When you're building one plane at a time, things seem to move right along. When you're building 6 or 7 like we are here, and working at the same time on other projects, development projects, everything drags out. Anyway,
this is a really excellent piece of information, and this is one I have not put on the video yet. I think this is the first time. This is Kent Tyser. This is one of his Stragas. He has 3 of them. This is one of the ones that he's very pleased with, and he has years and years of flying, and he's very comfortable with the way it trimmed out.
Needless to say, my original Strega is still flying. Brian Manal has it. He's still flying it every day, and that plane has won a tremendous amount of contests. Local, finished 5th at the team trials, 5th at the Nats. Many people have learned the pattern on it, Mike Kajeski included. So it's been a good quality plane.
Because so many of them have been built over the years, many people have built from the plans. We have a real good idea of how to trim the plane out. And this is the thought. I want to put basically what I told Kent on the phone on this video. It'll take a few minutes. This is excellent information. Kind of stuff you're really not going to read about in magazines, I don't think.
Again, we start with a good database. The database from my original Strega and Kent's 3 Stragas. Now this might seem like such an easy point that you might in fact overlook it, thinking, well, it's common sense. Why wouldn't anybody do that? But a lot of people don't do this. They don't take advantage of things that are already sitting there. Now in this case, here's what we have. We have the original Strega that's now 10 years old, still flying. Kent's 3 Stragas, and we have the best of the 3, the one he likes the best, the newest one. And we have his new plane, the one that is yet unflown, and we are going to see that at Brodax on the Brodag videos when we get done with those. Now, it would almost be so easy if you thought this through. You'd almost wonder, why doesn't everybody do this? Well, quite a few people build a plane that they've already built one of, and specifically one I can think of, Noblers, Brodak Cardinals, planes people build in quantity. So here's the original plane. We know, after, in Kent's case, 3 or 4 years of flying, he's finalized where his final CG is, where he likes to fly the plane. Now keep in mind, this would vary from my plane to Kent's plane. If you had Paul Walker's Impact, for instance, you may not want the CG that Paul Walker has. You have to know where your CG is, where you're comfortable flying. Well, Kent has already done that. He's already spent 3 years to develop a database for a set of trim conditions that suit his flying needs. But the biggest one is the CG. Now, what I suggested to Kent to do is just take the brand new, the yet unflown Strega, and the first thing to do before you even go to the flying field, these are things you want to do right at the house. And let's assume they're both within 4 or 5 ounces of each other. They're similar planes. First thing you want to do is take this CG that you're real comfortable with, measure it from the trailing edge up, and what I do is lay a piece of tape on the bottom of the wing, put all little increments in it, take my little stand with 2 pencil erasers and find exactly where that plane is balancing. And not close, but exactly. Not with the tail down or the tail. Get exactly the balance point. Then move that balance point off into the new plane, and you have just saved yourself probably 100 trim flights, because you're starting with a trim that you know is going to be comfortable for you. So by knowing, and this is so critical. Now, let's pretend this plane was being flown by somebody else. The CG might be further forward, further back, but we know this is Kent's preferred CG, and that's what's important. So what I want to do then is take that piece of tape off this model, put it on this model, and get it either adding solder to the tail wheel or adding nose weight. I want to get it to balance exactly the same. And I've saved myself a lot, probably a flying season. Now, if that was the only thing, if that was just the only thing that really was going to be a benefit, well, that'd even be worth doing. But there's more.
Now, because we know where the CG is on the old plane and the CG on the new plane, we can start with the lead-outs. We can measure the CG up here. We reference everything off the flap hinge line. We can get our rake exactly the same. And remember, on rake, it's the mean average that matters. In other words, if you take the front lead out and the back lead out, what you measure is you measure off the mean average of the center. You can move the lead outs further apart, put them closer together, but it's always the mean average that matters. So we can transpose that right onto the new model. Now you might think, well, gee, that'll be real easy. If the CG is the same, we could just measure up from the hinge line and put the lead outs at the same position, thereby probably saving our energy, fuel, motor runs. We can transpose that right out. We can take the lead out location from the plane with 3 or 4 years of flying, put it right into the new plane. Now, you're probably getting a picture here and saying, gee whiz, if we can do that, well, we could also figure out the tip weight. Well, we don't want to measure the lead weight. What we want to do is put the model up on a scale, and let me show how to do this. What we're looking for is not how much lead is in the wingtip, if there's an ounce or 2 ounces. We don't want to know how much, because in the real world, the amount of paint that's on these surfaces, the amount of wood that isn't carved out of both tips can vary it, the weight of the wheels. A lot of things factor into this. What we want to know is the true imbalance, or what I call the true tip weight. And the way we do that is balance the plane. Usually upside down is the best way to do it, is to just let it balance on the rudder and maybe on the spinner, if you have a way of just putting the spinner of the plane on your finger somehow, and put a scale under the outboard tip. And you'll read the scale. It'll probably read between 1 and 3 ounces. Then you want to repeat that onto the new plane. Now, a lot of times what I've seen people do, and it's a mistake, they have, let's say, 2 ounces of tip weight. They just put 2 ounces of tip weight in the new plane, but they haven't factored in that this tip was an ounce heavier or a ½ ounce heavier. And so it's a meaningless number. It's only meaningful if you do it this way. You've got to have the plane balanced in such a way that you can measure how much heavier that tip is. Best to do it on a gram scale, and then best to take that amount of weight and transpose it into the new plane. So having said that, now we know we have this amount of imbalance or true tip weight, and we know we've pre-trimmed it. Well, gee whiz, you can see right away, wow, at this point, now a lot of people take a new model, get it to fly reasonably well, let's say at 80% of performance, and then say, gee, that flies good, I'll just leave it there. Well, yeah, but that's not my philosophy. Now, and I'll explain how I do it, because even if you're a new guy, this is information you can use. Now, assuming, and this is not true with Kent's ship, he has a Rojet 65 in this plane, and a Tiger 60 in this plane, so we can't really take the motor and tank out, but that sure would be if you could take the whole powertrain. And I know what people think, oh gee, I have a new pretty model, I want a brand new motor and a brand new tank. No, what I want in the new plane is a motor that's proven with hundreds of flights, well worn in, and a tank that's got thousands of gallons of fuel frost through it. But if we could, I would always suggest the tank, the shim, the motor, and the prop and Lou Dudke used to do this. He'd take it out of one matrix and put it in the other matrix. First flight, flip it, needle valve set, tank clean. And that same holds true with the prop. Now you can see, of course we can't go there with Kent, but you can see where this is going. And then you take it to the next level. Now, because you've already got, and Kent Tyser's in the business of wrapping lines for people, well, it's real easy. And by the way, if you need a set, just call Kent. He's been making all my lines. Here's the deal. You get a nice big windy pink reel. The handle, let's say you're using braideds, a certain length, a certain handle setting. Well, make an exact copy of that. The handle spacing the same, the line length, whether it's solids or braideds, exactly the same. And by transposing that, I guarantee you, if you've done this accurately, what you're going to wind up with is when you go out to the field the first day, you are going to be a minimum of a year ahead of where you were before. Now, this also assumes one other thing. It assumes that nobody flies a plane without taped hinges, because that equalizes everything. That would equalize the fact that one plane might have a bigger hinge gap than another. So if both planes are taped, you know that's going to be exactly the same. And if you're using, in our case, Power Master fuel, very consistent, doesn't vary from gallon to gallon, you've built yourself in 1,000 consistencies. Now, this is really an oversimplification of what I'm trying to explain, but I think it makes the point. When you have your first model, you always have the choice of taking the database from a previous model that's similar. But if you had no database, well, you'd try, let's say, this prop, that prop, this prop, that. Well, you find out, gee whiz, that's the best prop. Well, I want to have that CG, this CG, this CG, that CG. Try the tape hinge lines, taped, untaped, the handle bigger, smaller. Well, let's go back and try a different tank change to CG. Now we have to re-alter that. We go back. Now this goes for season after season, and you're trying things, trying different trim things in the wind, in the calm, back and forth, bigger Venturi, smaller this, bigger that. And you arrive at, you hope, somewhere down the road where Ken has expressed to me anyway that he's very happy with the way the plane flies, or else why would he have built 4 of them? Well, here's what I'm suggesting, and it's very, very simple, and if you understand this concept, it'll help you in other areas too, is that what we want to do is not do this. We want to go in one stroke of the pen. And I'll call this, for lack of a better word, a trim map. And whether you do it the way Paul Walker suggests in his impact article, or with a flow chart, or you do it by seat of the pants, or if you're like Bill Metzband, where you have formulas for things, or Big Jim, who had incredibly complex formulas for every piece of trim, doesn't matter how if you get from point A to point B to where that plane is flying good in a relatively short amount of time, you have used a trim map effectively. And that applies to every plane I've ever flown. There's just no exceptions to that. That's just good, solid stunt technology. I doubt that you're going to read about it in stunt news, because it just doesn't get printed that often. A lot of people do it. A lot of people don't want to take the time or the energy to write articles for magazines, and thankful to all the people that have done it over the years. We'd never learned this, and thanks to people like Big Jim and like Bill Metzband and the types that have gone on and on about how to do this. But this is a good way to do it. This is a solid way. Now, it's also good for me, because what it does, I always think that when we go to the Brodak meet, the biggest advantage of being to the Brodak meet, other than it's a friendly competition, it's not a high-key thing, the thing that it allows us to do is I usually get to help other people work on their planes, their motors, their props, their pipe lengths, their things like that. But in this case, if more people did this, I would have more time to just hang out under the tent and enjoy the meet. And it's going to happen because the people that have used this technique in the past, and the list could be very long, even with little Brodak Cardinals, that list could go on and on and on. What happens is they're able then to help other people. Good technology.
Well, we've had this picture on video. It's been in stunt news. This is Jerry Ruschke. Jerry was from GB Hobbies or BG Hobbies, I'm not sure. And quite a guy. We corresponded by email with his wife Dorothy many, many times. He brought my spare wing to the B-25 and some B-25 cowls and stuff, so I hope he's working on his B-25. But then today I get this thing in the mail. Jerry, I get this letter in the mail, and I'm thinking I'm going to have some pictures of the B-25 Jerry's working on. Oh, yeah.
This letter actually came from Mitch Heller. Now, Mitch Heller is one of his friends, and this is, and I'm reading from the notes, so this is a Harmon rocket with a 300 horsepower Lycoming. Its climb rate's 5,000 feet a minute. It's ready for painting. Little picture of the dashboard. And as I always say, the thing that binds us together, not only the event, but just the fact that we love aviation. Now, Jerry's quite a guy. According to this letter, I won't read the whole letter, but one of the things he has, and boy, I wish I had it, and I don't, is a spacewalker. That's Jerry's spacewalker. But even cooler than that, I mean, having a spacewalker is as cool as it gets, but I think it really gets even cooler than this. Jerry's house is on an airport. Now, the only way you could make that better, if I find out that he's got a house on an airport and his own private flying circle in the back, then you're going to have me for a free tenant for the rest of my life. Anyway, I'll read a couple little other notes from, these were sent in by Mitch Heller. They were taken Memorial Day weekend 2003. Jerry Rushke and his big airplane, Spacewalker and Harmon rocket. Spacewalker is like a SIG kit, except it carries two real people with a 100 horsepower Continental 200. It's about a year old with 100 total hours, and it's for sale for $30,000. It's a bargain. My B-25's for sale for $30,000 too, Jerry, in case you didn't know. Let me fly it. He let me fly it for an hour or so while my airplane was in annual. It flies beautifully. It lands at 48 miles an hour. Well, Mitch, we really appreciate the pictures. I'll send some of these into Stunt News. And Jerry, the next set of pictures I see, I want to see the B-25. Yeah, just to kind of fill in some of the gaps here, we've been testing Venturis on a B-25. Here's our major problem is all summer we're going to be flying over grass. We don't want to be tempted to land in the grass, taxi. I'm afraid that the plane, because of the tricycle gear, would taxi and turn in at me. For whatever reason, I'm just paranoid, I guess. We're going to be back to flying over concrete on Labor Day, and then we're going to put the Venturis back in, but in the meantime, I thought it would be to my advantage to test Venturis, and here's the reason why. Remember, these are motors that Dubjet made, Rich Oliver, Dubjet. They're new motors, so I don't have a database. Now, I'm not like Kent Tyson, where I can just dip into the database and say, yeah, if you have a Tiger 60, put a 315 Venturi in. So we originally had put on OS Max carbs, and they were very big. I think my personal feeling is they were just too big, because even though they had good power, we always were running tight on fuel. If you ran the motors the least bit rich, they would use 5.5 ounces of fuel. Now for a 35, one of the things that I guess is just benchmarks or ballpark things that I look for, I want to use between 4 and 4.5 ounces of fuel. So that was telling me, gee whiz, a 35 that uses that much fuel, might be a little too big. Also, whenever I try to run it without muffler pressure, the motors got really difficult to needle. They got unstable. Now, this is the key point here to remember. When the Venturi is right, at least I think, and I'll just make an example. If you have a Super Tiger 60, and this is the kind of database you build when you have 20 years of flying a certain motor, or if you have Richard Oliver out flying every day and he can do the testing for you, that's even better. But what would happen with a Tiger 60? You would start 280, came with the motor, you could open it up to 290, get a little more power, 300, and I'm just making numbers up, but I usually would make, when I made sets of Venturis, this is how I would make them. You'd make a set of 5 Venturis. You knew this one was going to be as stable as a rock. It'd use about 4.5 ounces to 5 ounces of fuel. This one would get to be a little more power. We could spin some carbon props now. We can do other things. And keep in mind, it's always in conjunction with the head anyway. As you got above 300 and maybe up I would say 310 and 320, these you really needed to have muffler pressure, where the needle just got very unstable. It was one click in too fast, one click out too slow. Well, so you always want to know what this range is. And I think with these big carbs, what was happening was I was in that range, where you could get good runs, but it wasn't stone consistent. Now, what I have now with the smaller Venturis, I have the opposite problem. With the 35s, And you saw, well, I don't know if we got any of those. The flights were so bad because it was raining and dark and the field was underwater, but I did get some video to look at. What we did get with the Venturis, the needles were great, but we were only using about 3.5 ounces of fuel per flight. Now, what's wrong with using 3.5 ounces of fuel per flight? It may not be obvious. Everybody would say, oh, gee, that's great. You're not using, well, not really, because with less fuel going through the motor, less fuel, less oil. And it's the fuel and alcohol, the alcohol and the fuel that cools the motor. So what happens? You have the worst of all scenarios. The motor runs hotter and it has less oil at the same time. And so what I'm going to do is, one by one, I'm going to open these Venturis up, just like I did with the Tiger 60s, maybe 10 thousandths at a time. I'm probably here on this scale. Maybe I want to go to here, or even here. But I want to stay out of the range, if I possibly can, stay out of the range where things are unstable and difficult to needle. And the reason is because on a twin-engine plane, it's hard enough. There's enough things happening on a twin-engine plane anytime you fly it, that this would be difficult enough when you have a single-engine plane. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible, maybe a little less high performance and a little more stable. But now we'll know, the thing we'll know is at the end of this test, for sure, we're going to be able to say, okay, that's the amount of fuel we're using, and then we can match the carbs to what the Venturis were in terms of size and fuel consumption. And I hope what's going to happen, we're just going to back down on power just a little bit. It never ceases to amaze me. This is what happens in the world of control line stunt. You have Flyer A, who, through his experience, he crosses the lake. I call it Lake Windy. You can name it Lake Brodak, Lake Aldrich, anything you want. He walks in and he says, oops, I hit an alligator. Oh, I got bitten. Oh, my God. So I sneak around this part of the lake and I go back. Oh, I hit another alligator. Oh, I took my other foot off. And they get to this side of the lake and they have this experience in life. This is their life experience. Then you have Flyer B. He comes along. Maybe he's a little more intelligent, or he's watched more videos. Maybe he's watched less videos. I don't know. And he goes, doop, and he gets to the other shore. And he says, what's his feeling? He says, well, you idiot, there's no alligators in the lake. So what happens is, now this person says, well, you don't know what you're doing. You're an idiot because I didn't see any alligators in the lake. And he tells the third person, and typically this happens out on Stuka Stunt or in Stunt News or something, and he says, you guys are both wrong. I went out, and the first thing I did, I got bitten by that alligator, and I went this way, I got bitten by that alligator, and then, man, I had all kind of trouble. So what happens is, everybody's experience in getting from being a beginner to, let's hope, an expert, everybody's experience tends to be a little bit different. And this is why in our wonderful event, you have such divergent opinions. As an example, you can have people in our event that'll say, they'll take this path in life, hit the alligator, oh! Hit the alligator, oh! Hit this alligator, oh! Hit this! And they just come away thinking, wow, this is a terrible event. Wow, everything's a problem. Wow, my finishes don't come out, my motors don't run. Yeah, that can happen. But then you always have this person who takes advantage of the knowledge that's already gone before him. And so this is what happens. And this is what I see happening when people are arguing. Always keep this in mind. When you have two people and one person says, well, 4 strokes are the best thing in the world. The other guy says, 4 strokes stink. What happens is they've probably hit different alligators in crossing the pond. If one person says, I use this finishing technique, let's say they monocoat, and another one says, I like Brodak dope. Well, it could be that they've hit different things as they've gone across the pond. So here's my suggestion, rather than be mad at the person you don't agree with, just have an understanding of his dilemma. he hasn't seen the same alligators crossing the pond that you have, and try to give him a benefit of a doubt and hope that he'll give you the benefit of the doubt, because we all hit different alligators. Now, there's only one exception to that, and the exception is me. Because in my life, in doing this for about 50 years now, it's going to be 50 years in August, here's what I've done. Boing, 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 back, boing, boing. And I've been fighting these alligators for my whole life. And I know where they live, I know what they eat for dinner. And so my database typically is a little bit bigger than a person that would only be flying on a weekend or building one plane a year or burning 20, 30 gallons of fuel a year instead of 100. What happens? You just see more alligators. And I hope the whole purpose of this tape and all tapes is to help you when it's your time that you do this and just go right to the other side. And if the videos help doing that, well, that's great, and I really think they do. Anyway, my best information for today. I hope that explains why a lot of people in the world of stunt don't agree, and they don't even know why they don't agree, and they find it so hard to see the other person's opinion and point of view. And if you ever want to see good examples of it, just go out into magazines, Snooker Stunt, or any of the people that are constantly bickering and fighting and trying to promote their line of politics in the world of stunt. We're coming up again on the end of this video, and I really feel bad about something. In the course of making this video, we had that cardinal. He lived for 3 days, but he was obviously sick right from the beginning. We knew he was hurt, and that's usually when baby birds get thrown out of the nest prematurely, or they're walking on the ground and they can't fly. You almost always know they're not going to make it. And sadly, this morning when we got up, he was dead. But we really did enjoy him for a few days, and he was a part of our shop and part of our life. And the only thing now we're watching is the last couple of days of our baby birds out in the kitchen. Any day now, they'll be fledging out. It's an amazing, exciting world. To me, it's happening all around you, and some people don't even know it. We were certainly glad we got to help Paul Citron. Paul, I think, is one of the people I really enjoy the art of finishing models. This guy is really a craftsman. You really have to see this model in real life, and we hope we can help him get his motor things squared away. We hope the field isn't underwater as much as it's been in the past. This is some beautiful model. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Hope you can use all the information and all the entertainment that you can get from the tapes. See you on the next tape.